How do children learn so much so quickly? Recap and consolidation. Children are highly effective, motivated, active, and playful learners, balancing the needs of exploring the world around them and exploiting what they have learned. Children pay particular attention to inconsistent and unexpected outcomes that provide new information about the world around the way the world works. Children exploratory learning is well suited to learning about cause and effect, and in using that knowledge to predict how things will behave in the world. Children can transfer what they have learned in one context to another, generalizing in systematic and evidence-based ways. Play and pretend play help children practice the physical and cognitive skills they will need later in life. Young children appreciate the difference between fantasy and reality and are often skeptical that unlikely things and events are real. However, they can be encouraged towards supernatural thinking if the belief is shared by the others. Children's accurate imitation of behavior allows culture to be passed from one generation to the next. Children are discerning learners, preferring to trust people who are accurate, reliable, skillful, well-informed, prestigious, and appropriately confident. While the motivation to imitate and instruct might be universal, there is cross-cultural and historical variation in exactly how such imitation and instruction take place. Direct instruction is a double-edged sword. It can guide children to a specific answer more quickly, but it can make them less likely to discover new information and to draw unexpected conclusions. Play and social learning in the Benjelbayaka. As discussed in Chapter 1, we have spent more than 97% of our time as a species living a forager way of life. And so that is the environment we are most adapted to. Even long before modern humans were around, our distant ancestors had been living in similar way for perhaps as much as 2 million years. The relatively recent advent of agriculture and domestication of animals simply haven't had sufficient time on our evolutionary timescale to have significant effect on our human nature. This does not mean that the foraging way of life or the people that live that life today are in any sense less developed or simpler than other societies. The cultural ratchet effect advances in different directions for different societies, and foragers have for many generations accumulated different technologies, tools, know-how, and skills that are exquisitely suited to the demands of their lives. Surviving off the land requires long apprenticeship with plants, animal, geography, weather, bushcraft, and collaborative foraging techniques. Indeed, the time it takes to learn the complex web of knowledge may have been one of the reasons why humans needed such a long childhood in the first place. Kepler, the Tell 2000. Like any society, the foraging way of life is not homogeneous either, with large variation existing between forager societies in how labour is distributed, how resources are gathered, and who accompanies which social roles. The long-held trope of man as the aggressive hunter and woman as the passive gatherer has started to break down under close scrutiny by considering a broader range of present-day and ancient societies. We now know that women have played and continue to play a substantial role in both hunting and warfare. Anderson et al. 2023, Gulliov 2003. Despite this, the importance of the distant past, we cannot observe how children grew up in forager societies tens of thousands of years ago. We can, however, study how children grow up in forager cultures today, not because these societies are primitive or frozen in time, but because foragers today resemble our past way of life better than urban city dwellers with their access to recent inventions of healthcare, supermarkets, birth control, formal education, and so on. Figure 6.4. Handprints from a cave in Argentina made by our forager ancestors about 9,000 years ago. Based in part on the sizes and dimensions of the handprints, some researchers believe that most of art found in ancient cave walls like this was made by adolescents and children. Guthrie, 2005. Anthropologist Denise Salati and her colleagues were particularly interested in the development of social learning and play in the Benjel Bayaki hunter-gatherer children from Congo, Brazzaville. This group spans across the rainforests of the Republic of Congo and Central African Republic, and its members earn a living by hunting, trapping, fishing, gathering forest products such as wild yams and caterpillars, collecting honey, and trading wild products in exchange of farmed foods, cigarettes, and alcohol. Salali et al. 2019. The team of researchers analysed thousands of hours of videos recordings of 96 children, ranging in age from early infancy to late adolescence. They created diaries of their activities and recorded how much time they spent foraging, taking part in rituals, resting, cooking, cleaning, collecting firewood and water, manufacturing baskets and mats, making huts, looking after younger children, talking, playing, grooming, trading, singing, and so on. There were three main results that are of relevance to us. First, they found that children mainly learned by observation and imitation when the purpose of the activity was obvious to them in some way, such as foraging, using tools, cooking, preparing food, and grooming. It is not uncommon for even young children in these societies to accompany parents conducting subsistence tasks, e.g., by walking with or being carried by older females in the forest during foraging trips. And in these contexts, the children learn by observation, imitation, and play practice. Second, children were more likely to learn via direct instruction from peers and elders when the purpose of the activity was less clear and more of an arbitrary cultural convention, such as the cutting and distribution of meat in accordance with cultural norms around food, sharing, or rituals. One such ritual involves women singing together and hand clapping to beckon the forest spirits into the camp while the men prepare for the forest spirits on a secret path, who later arrive in the camp to perform a ritualistic dance. Figure 6.5. Figure 6.5. Benjal Bayaka children, the child covered in leaves in mimicking a forest spirit, initiated men who claim to have captured such a spirit enter the camp dressed in leaves. And this is followed by Dancing into the Night, reproduced with kind permission of Deniz Salali and Nikhil Chandri. Third, the researchers found that this kind of play, children were involved in anticipated the division of labour between the sexes in the adults. Specifically, boys engaged more in hunting and climbing trees for honey collection, whereas girls engaged more in food gathering and domestic activities. So the content of what the boys and girls were playing about matched the adult roles of men and women. Moreover, girls transitioned from play into work sooner than boys did. The Bayaka girls started practicing foraging wild plants with women from early childhood, whereas the boys only started accompanying men on nighttime hunting trips during adolescence. This is a specific example of the idea we met in Chapter 5. The pretend play helps children practice their physical and cognitive skills they will need later in life and develop a sense of cultural identity in the here and now. Exploratory play. Watch Bayaka infants begin experimenting with machetes soon after they are able to walk. This is a form of exploratory play and prepares them for the skills they will need later on. When anthropologists and psychologists have looked across a broad range of societies, they have found that some forms of play, social learning, and instruction appear universal to all cultures. Who and what children play with are much more variable and are best explained by the customs, traditions, and values of the society they grow up in. For example, girls in the Afkavenda Go Delta of Botswana play house by pounding a stick in the dirt, imitating the way women use a mortar and pestle to crush grain, while Pell boys of Liberia practice climbing small coconut trees using a bamboo harness, imitating the way men climb the taller, more dangerous palm oil trees. Bock and Johnson, 2004, Nancy, 1996. Key points. Play, social learning, and teaching appear to be universal aspects of human cultures. The context and timing of these processes during development vary to meet the need of the culture in which they occur.